right, we are in round 6 of the Pace Weekend Tournament, and we have Matizpl in the blue versus ColaColin in the black. And Matiz is way down here at the South Pole, and most of the way around is ColaColin. A little bit on the upper horizon towards the North Pole is ColaColin. And I am Metabolical.
And I'm WP Marshall.
Now this is a particularly exciting round, I think, because these guys are some of the leaders in the tournament, and Matiz has gone undefeated so far, 5-0. ColaColin has had 1 defeat, and so he's 4-1. So if ColaColin wins, then he will be tied for first with Matiz. And I think that there's some secondary factors that may determine the tiebreaker, but I don't know what those are. Do you know anything about that?
I'm not 100% on the tiebreakers, I'm afraid. But I think it might be something to do with...
Well, we may have lost Marshall there. He is, in fact, at the very edge of the internet, so that's all right.
I just clung on and managed to stay in about, but does seem to be waning a bit.
Oh, he's hanging in there. That's great. Matiz has abandoned his... Oh, there he is. He's working on his 5th energy plant, and he's really cranked out some fabricators quickly, and he already has a half dozen metal extractors. Meanwhile, ColaColin is got his own half dozen right there, and some expansion on the way as well.
I'm looking at the expansion options for both of these players, and it looks to me as though with Colin's starting geography, it's going to be slightly more awkward for him to expand and keep everything defended at once. But if he keeps his commander within that geography, he only has a few choke points he needs to worry about.
Right, he could easily just put a laser turret up in a lot of those entry points, and it would be very difficult to get anywhere close with tier 1 units kind of at all. But as you point out, his expansion, like you can see where his double fabricators are now, those are going to require additional defense.
And we do see an alleged tank moving towards there, probably going to be sitting next to those in order to defend them just in case. But he does need some anti-air as well.
And air factory is already completed by Matiz. He's got his first unit out. That's a air unit. That's a fighter, and he's scoping around. Meanwhile, the same has happened for ColaColin, and he's got his scout roaming around looking for his enemies.
Matiz also using a Dox to scout and is going towards ColaColin's expansion there, but has literally just veered off. But he has got a couple of Dox moving around as well, but the Fireflies do the work for them. Oftentimes
you'll see those Dox go out and they will just kind of make a beeline for the different metal clusters of metal points on the planet, since those are natural starting points.
I'm just going to note how many fabricators ColaColin has at the moment. I fear for his eco at this point. He may be stalling on energy given the amount of build power he's pushing out all at once.
Well, he has, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 going, and his commander. And meanwhile, Matiz has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as well. So they both actually have the exact same number of fabricators right now. Says he was reclaiming his commander by accident. Now a scout kind of works its way into Matiz's base, just driving by. He's got the ground scout, and so he's going to get like a little bit of a peek. How much does he see? Okay, he saw a bit, and now he's driving it in a little further, and he sees almost everything. Actually, he
even sees the air fabricator.
He sees the two factories, but he doesn't see the other 2 bot factories, so he may make different decisions based on that.
Interesting that we see how Matiz is sort of making staging points dotted around the planet, sort of at his metal expansions in order to defend them.
Yeah, I think what he's trying to do here is just
And there's
claim a
also the
lot of
vehicles.
territory and then come back and put the metal down, extractors down in between.
Meanwhile, Colin has a rather more sort of easy method of expansion, if you will, whereby it's sort of the path of expansion is almost laid out for him, and as long as he keeps up his defense towards that, he should be able to just expand slightly easier.
And we can see that there's actually 5 factories planned out there near the South Pole, but just an expansion towards ColaColin. So he is really planning to pump out some units there, and they're all vehicle factories.
So we'll probably see a combination of anti-air, spinners, alleged tanks, and maybe the odd Inferno as well, with their increased health compared to all the other units.
Yep. And the vehicle scout finally dies over here by the other kind of remote factory, bot factory. And
we also see T2 Air coming up from ColaColin very early into the game.
Yeah, that's exciting. And he's got 6 Fabbers on that, so that's a lot of build power. Shouldn't take a terribly long time. In fact, it's already halfway done. Tier 2 Air will give him a lot of power, and given the air fabricators that are out remotely, he could easily just like wander by and like pick those guys off.
I wonder whether he's going to go aggressive, claiming the skies first, or whether he's going to get out the fabricators and get up some T2 eco. I suspect the former of those.
Yeah. Meanwhile, there's some fabricators working their way through the mountains from Matiz's base towards ColaColin. ColaColin's got a ton of metal extractors slurped up here already. Let's look down on the other side. Well, Matiz is doing pretty well too, but my rough impression is that the ColaColin's a little bit ahead, and there's some units working their way towards this collision between the docks of Matiz, his factory that's still being built, and the fabricators and tanks that are near there. So there may be a conflict brewing here. Matiz doesn't actually see it, and he's turning his docks away. However, ColaColin does see, and now they both have vision. Let's see how they react.
I suspect potentially Matiz won't move his docks there, even if he does, because maybe he just wants to give the impression that they were never there at all and wants to keep that reasonably significant early raiding force hidden for the time being.
Yeah, that may be the case, and he has just kind of given up on that spot. Now, he got a notification message when that went under attack, so it's not like there was a good chance he was unaware, and the docks have kind of made their way past and towards the base. Now, I think that there's some other docks from ColaColin coming to intercept, and it must be a radar somewhere that's got those things as blips, and they collide, and they coming back. It looks like both teams are microwing their armies here. Matiz came out pretty well with that, still has 7 of his units, but now there's quite a flow of units coming over to approach. Meanwhile, to the south of that, there's a fairly substantial tank army moving its way in and has really run into ColaColin's base here.
I was just looking around and I did not see a radar from ColaColin, so that engagement there between those two docks was complete fluke and rather unfortunate for Matiz.
Yeah, but Matiz is kind of making it up with his stream of tanks coming out of his 5 factories. Got out a little bit before those of the bot factories that ColaColin was building nearby, and he's already destroyed one, killed off all the units, and now there's some towers there to try to defend, but it'll be interesting to see if they hold on.
There's also the docks raiding all the metal sites that ColaColin had previously had under control. He's lost 4 so far already, but also to be noted is T2 economy going up within Colin's base. A lot of T2 energy there, going very shortly.
That's true. He's already got 3 of those up. It's 15,000 energy per second, and that one will make it 20, so it's going up pretty quickly as well. From a tier 2 units perspective, he's got a bunch of the tier 2 fighters, but that's about it. So he hasn't gone gunships, he hasn't gone bombers. so he's not really using those to fight right now. Matiz also has a set of fighters right about the equator, and there's a bit of a conflict coming up. So, if they run to each other, those armies just might smash together, and that'll be that.
Nice micro there, pulling a couple of peregrines away before that encounter, just in case. But definitely, Matiz will see that large group of peregrines and will be not wanting to engage with that at this point. Plus, there's also a kestrel mixed in as well.
And knowing that there's a kestrel mixed in, we can take a look, and he is building another fighter and then a kestrel. So he may have that on kind of continuous build with the two types mixed in now. Matiz has T2 air as well, and he's gone with the fighters almost completely.
There are sort of continual engagements around the North Pole, exchanging metal sites here. There's even a continual attempts to try and take out this small staging force of Matiz.
And then kind of all the way around the other side, there's a big raid of bots that have gone through and killed one of his 5 vehicle factories, killed the other units, and are now they've kind of mostly passed through. I think they've come to a stop, so I think they were just sent to scout, and they happened to kill one of the factories. But those factories are still building.
It's curious how they seem to be sort of bunching each other up on the ramps of those factories.
Yeah, that is
reasonably large engagement just outside ColaColin's base now, but there are a lot of laser towers there to defend. Significant number indeed. We only need walls now, and that's going to be a very difficult side for Matiz to approach from.
Yep, and there is a large set of tanks and bots that are near ColaColin's base, but Tier 2 air comes out, and the gunships will just take those things down very quickly. So that's probably why he's got a big group of those on the retreat. And he's also produced quite a few of the spinners, the anti-air units, so he will be able to respond a little bit to those. The last patch actually provided quite a bit more firepower for the ground-based anti-air, increasing both the fire rate and the damage considerably.
Yeah, there's extra flak going up in Matiz's base in addition to a nuke in response to that large T2 air force being sighted on the part of ColaColin. ColaColin also building a nuke as well. It's going to be another nuclear race.
It could be another nuclear race, and Matiz has actually completely wiped out that Tier 2 air force that ColaColin had built. He's got another few back in his base, so he's not completely out, but he did lose a good chunk of his air. A lot of build power on Matiz's nuclear missile, and
there's some levelers coming out from Colin to maybe try and combat the large number of T1 ants going around, or rather alleged tanks.
Yeah, and it looks like the nuke of ColaColin may meet up with these tanks that are moving in, so that would be a pretty big loss because he's already dumped a lot of energy into it. And again, he loses a bunch of Tier 2 air to the ground anti-air.
Yeah, that has to be a priority, especially when you have kestrels in the mix, because they aren't all that resilient to damage at this point.
Well, at this point, the anti-air has been picked off now, and so the army is just being completely cleaned up by the gunships of ColaColin. So that may represent the end of that push for a little bit. But there's another one happening on the other side of the map, but it's really going to be Matiz running into a giant cluster of ColaColin's units. Let's see if he can see those. He does see them. Or Matiz, of course, sees them. Yep.
Very large group of ColaColin's forces now moving on the vehicle factories from Matiz, even with a couple of Infernos mixed in there, so they're going to take the brunt of the hits. There goes a nuke, right in the heart of Colin's base from Matiz.
Yeah, I'm just going to go and rewind that for just a moment so we can see what was lost. And Nuke coming in, and right in the heart, he loses a ton of energy, as well as that advanced factory. So that was a good strike by Matiz. Now moving back up to the current moment, the nuclear production of ColaColin's really only about halfway done.
Yeah, he does need more assisting on that, because now that he's seen the nuke launched and has received that blow, especially to his energy, the damage that Matisse can do now is going to be compounded.
Yeah, tons of fabrication going on to his nuclear missile in Matiz's base. It's actually already over halfway done, and um, well, there's still some ahead on ColaColin, but with the amount of fabrication units he has on it, it may not be enough.
I fear at this point ColaColin may have sort of resorted to, you have the middle of my base, but I the entire northern hemisphere and am stretching around to your base, because looking around, most of Matisse's expansions are coming under strain and is almost cornered. So how long he's going to survive for now is only going to depend on how many nukes he can launch.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's got any kind of scouting done to discover where ColaColin's commander is. We can look to see. I'm sure he's overrun this at some point, but if we take away the ColaColin vision, he can see the cluster of units, but he doesn't necessarily see that the commander's there. He doesn't have any blips to give him an indication. Here comes another nuke from Matisse, and it looks like it's headed right towards his nuke.
The nuclear launcher.
Yep, so that takes that out. Not necessarily the best use of resources there. He could, with the build power he had, he could have built his own anti-nuke and then use that one in this cluster of buildings instead. But just getting the nuke and a few fabricators doesn't seem nearly as compelling, considering that he hadn't even spent all the energy on, or all the metal and energy on that nuke in the first place.
What he does want to watch out for is putting his commander where he has, because that is right in the path of one of ColaColin's assault forces, which has got a few infernos in there. But of course he can use the Uber cannon to try and quell that. But again, most of the expansions are going down, and Colin does have most of the map now.
Yeah, pretty big fight there. He knows to back off a little bit, making use of the Uber cannon to clear out that army. That actually takes care of it pretty well. Those engagements, the commander is really strong fighting force, but the every little bit of damage that he takes a long time to repair. So if you kind of peck away at him, you can lose you can kind of lose a little hard to replace life on a regular basis.
Yeah, definitely. We now see some Hornets coming in to defend, but they get taken out instantly. The problem is the commander, he hasn't got all that much defense by him, but as you said, he is quite a powerful unit now in his own right.
Well, he does have two double laser turrets and several flak, so he can take a lot out, but it looks like he might lose a big chunk of energy here.
Definitely, but we do have the ghillies coming out from the T2 bot factories, and even some slammers now as well, so they'll be able to defend more and more effectively. But the nuke is almost ready for Matisse. Where this will go is unclear.
Yep. I'm kind of surprised people haven't started in any of these games. It hasn't ended up anybody going orbital and getting some radar up. The radar provides really good amount of vision and a good amount of even further for radars. So it's pretty valuable way to get that vision in a remote way that's hard to attack.
The nuke is launched from Matisse. It looks like it's on a path to hit Colin's sort of expansion with all of his vehicle and bot factories just to the southwest of his original spawn. Although I say that, I actually correct my parallax camera.
It could actually travel over the top, bypass all of that, and hit hit the power. Nope, it's actually kind of a complete miss.
Very poor nuke. That was B5 miss, I believe.
Yeah, I think he just fired blind, hoping to hit a lot, and just didn't happen to get it. Now the air is kind of working its way over there. I think he's going to try to scout and see what's up because he doesn't know uh, what the damage is. And intercepted by some air of ColaColin, but not enough to stop the scouting. He's kind of getting a good look at what's going on over here.
He doesn't quite see the commander. Yes, he does. There, he knows where the commander is now. He knows
Fly,
it's assisting the T2 air.
yep, flies right over it. It's got good good intel on that one now. Knows where all the key structures are, so he may be in good shape to do some more damage with that next nuke. And the next nuke is about 40% done.
It's going out incredibly rapidly at this point, and we're even getting some T2 bot fabricators out. Looks as though they're going for some T2 metal in order to get the additional build power, but more things rallied for the nuke, I suspect, in the near future.
Yep. And we'll look back at ColaColin's base here as well. Uh, kind of some big chunks have been taken out of it, like the front edges. And but he's got another tier 2 vehicle factory being built. I think that's a good choice. And he hasn't really gone back to build either anti-nukes or nukes. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't prioritized anti-nukes at all, given the vulnerability of his commander, the fact that he's been overflown, and his knowledge that Matiz is pumping out nukes right now.
I'm going to make an assumption in that ColaColin may attempt to Vanguard drop because he has so many Peregrines that it might be wise to get out some Pelicans at Vanguard or two. The Peregrines will then soak up the AA flak that is around Matiz's base, but as soon as that Vanguard gets in, and if it gets close enough to the commander, that's a really dodgy position to be in. Especially now with the Pelter wall very close to Matiz's base.
And a wave of tier 1 bots and tier 2 tanks are kind of working their way in from ColaColin into Matiz's base. Another nuke is launched. A lot of damage could happen from these bots, but a lot of damage could happen from that nuke. So
it's definitely a race against time here for Matiz. He's banking everything on his nukes, it seems.
And it looks like
the nuke doesn't hit the commander.
Nope. Did not get prioritized there. Yeah, another kind of terrible nuke, really.
So at this point, you sort of need to remember that it's about killing the commander, not about whittling down what your opponent has.
Well, it's not so bad. A lot of high-level players will whittle down the opponent to exaggerate the economic differences they may have. So, you can play a patient game where you whittle them down and make it so that now you're 20% more effective, and now you're 30% and then you give that time for that power to overwhelm. Now, in this case, I feel like he's spent a lot on those nukes and hasn't really gotten a lot out of them, and the consequence of that is that he has not been able to make use of his economic advantage. And there's a giant train of units just traveling down from ColaColin towards Matiz's base. He may be in
Matiz doesn't know any of that is there.
Yeah, he may be in trouble here. His space on the map has actually shrunk quite a bit if you look around the planet, and I think he's actually, nuking regularly, but he's in trouble.
Yeah, I almost feel as though it's sort of stabbing in the dark, but he definitely needs to fortify his base. I mean, on the side that train you mentioned is coming in is relatively undefended. There's a few laser turrets, but there's a big gaping hole just leading straight into the heart of the base and the energy field.
A few laser turrets aren't gonna save him here. I think this is just gonna come and just do the old erase your base routine. Now the commander is over there, so he may be able to hide behind some buildings and pump out some uber cannon shots, but he's going to be aware pretty soon. Yep, it's just showing up on his map. ColaColin's actually just building like a row of laser towers to try to hem him in, and he's kept him occupied on the other side. Another nuke goes off. Not sure it's even relevant.
It looks like it might be going straight for the.
Oh,
Well, maybe not.
he took out those laser towers. Think he's gonna regret that when he sees this army moving into his base here.
You always keep your back door locked, but know there's a back door there, but keep it locked.
So damage going down on the commander.
Really needs to use his Uber cannon at this point.
Yeah, he doesn't look like he's really paying attention to there. It's starting to move, but a lot of units coming in.
Get in range, it's going to be really quite easy for that commander's health to disappear.
Yep.
We have got Gillies supporting though, so potentially it's going to be close, but I suspect Colin might just about overwhelm him at this point.
Yeah, I just don't think he's got the quantity of units. If you kind of zoom out just a little bit, you can see that there's just a giant train of units. There's just so much production all coming in, and it's a mix of the tier 1 and tier 2. You know, even if he were to survive this, the front of the train, they're gonna take out like all of his economy. So this is looking pretty grim.
So they're going to get to his economy, or it's going to get to his nuke, but his commander is now on about 30% health, with 4 or 5 levelers coming in. Gilly's just the saving grace there, but now it's about tower defense, and he's gone on to expert difficulty here.
Yeah, he's really in trouble. The shellers are coming by, and they're just lobbing things over into his economic structures as they walk by, so not really having to do a lot. And he's got enough anti-air in the mix, I think, to deal with the few bombers that he has.
I think potentially at this point Matisse is thinking of moving out of his base with his commander stuffed in the middle of his army and just seeing how far across the map he can get, because there is quite an open space between him and ColaColin's base. It isn't actually got all that much defense.
Yeah, if he if he were to do something like that, he could make a pretty decent run. There's not that much in that direction, but he would have to try to punch his way back in. And there's enough production up here by ColaColin. I have a hard time believing he could make it all the way to the commander for the big fight.
And even if he did, he'd be on a significant disadvantage because of the health deficit, and because none of the nukes have actually hit Colin's commander. His commander is still on full health.
Matisse is building his nuke again with a few fabricators, and now he's pumping out some. Made a tier 1 air factory, and he's pumping out some air. So I think he may be thinking like his last chance is to go ahead and get that nuke to happen. And if that's the case, he could use it to try and do a snipe, even though he's pretty terribly behind.
He's significantly behind now, and he's not attempting to get up any extra defense. The only defense he's doing is getting up more T2 bot factories, but those are coming under fire from docks and levelers now.
Yep.
So as long as he's got so many fronts on his base now that he's going to have a hard time dithering out his forces to defend equally and effectively.
His nuclear launcher's almost done. Preparing another nuke. There it goes. Unlike before, it didn't just shoot out right away, but he has like taken his air out and moved it. I didn't see quite where, if he made any progress. If it did go anywhere, it didn't go far enough.
And it would have a hard time finding the commander in amongst all of the anti-air itself. Plus, Colin himself is now getting a nuke, so maybe he wants to finish off with a nuke himself and say, you know, all those nukes you fired at me, I'm more accurate.
Yeah, now it's my turn. You know, it's like there's so much control that ColaColin has. I can't find his commander, actually. Oh, there it is. It's right where it was all along. Safely participating. And a big army kind of moving out by Matisse. Maybe he kind of knows he's in trouble. Well, obviously he knows he's in trouble, but one of the things that he may be able to do here is use the superior range of the Gillies to try to like punch a hole through, but he'll have to be very careful and kind of kite his units because the shellers have considerable range as well. Oh, he just
The
reverses.
thing is, as soon as Colin sees the commander moving out, I suspect he'll probably change from shellers and levelers to vanguards, because as soon as he sees the commander out in the open, that's very vulnerable to vanguards, especially in force.
Yeah. Viewer points out that some gunships would end it pretty quick because there's really very little in the way of anti-air in this army. They could. Oh, I missed a nuke. Was it a nuke? Did you see it?
I didn't see it, no, but I think it hit the massive energy field just to the northwest of Colin's commander. Wasn't too much taken out, I don't think.
Yeah, it was an energy field. I just caught up on it. So that was kind of another disappointing nuke by Matiz. He's actually got enough build power there that he's already got another nuke up, about a third of the way done. So you have to remember that this is a very talented player, so he may know how to handle a desperate situation to some degree.
So now, although I do almost feel as though it's a sort of pin your tail on the donkey gone nuclear, almost from Matisse here with his nukes.
Yeah, he's had terrible luck with just kind of firing blind. It's kind of mentioned before that orbital would really help with that. Like if he had built orbital and just taken it up there, I don't think I saw any umbrellas. Probably no deep space radar, and yeah, the shellers actually have the range advantage here, and he's having to move around to try to deal with that. Nuclear missile coming from ColaColin towards Matiz's base. That's probably going to end the nuclear response by Matiz and perhaps achieve the GG status here.
Yeah, that's all of the economic build power, or at least most of it. He only has 3 T2 energy generators left and a few T1 energies, but he does have a lot of T2 metal still around, so he can still pump out the T2 units, but his commander is now wandering back into an empty shell of a former base.
Yeah, commander is completely isolated. He probably knows that the army is going to get squeezed here. I'm not sure why he hasn't surrendered at this point.
Yeah, there's so many levelers surrounding on all sides now, with only laser turrets really defending, with a few slammers and gillies. But the amount of options he has now is very rapidly decreasing.
Teleporter up for ColaColin. As far as I know, serves no purpose. He's got quite a bit of build power on his nuke, but it's still, and more kind of making a train in. Again, they really just need some recon, and then they can end.
Yeah, it's only going to take 1 or 2 levelers to find the commander isolated with no defense, and with the health he's gone, it'll only take about 2 or 3, maybe 4 volleys, and the commander will croak.
Yep, yeah. Matiz is persistent, building an advanced bout factory, and seems to be cranking it out pretty well. But I just don't see him surviving very long.
Yeah, he doesn't have any T2 fabricators, hence why they're being produced now from the bot factories. But even if he does have 3 there, it's going to take too long to build an anti-nuke compared to the build power on Colin's nuke. What Colin needs is the intel on the commander, and bingo.
Yeah, and I think Matiz is starting to discover the extent of a situation. He's moving his army further and further north, and he's going to start to see how much in the way of units and buildings are already built, and that might give him an indication of how desperate a situation is.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a case of ColaColin just expanding further and further forward, and of course, the further back your defense gets pushed, the easier it is for the assaulting team to just surround you.
Yeah. Now, it's one of those things where it's interesting to note that Matiz got to, there's the GG from Matiz. Matiz got to nuclear capability and successfully nuked ColaColin earlier on in the game than ColaColin got out.
Nuke.
But that was not enough for him to get to win, and in part because the first nuke was not that effective, but also in part because, when you're so spread out, a nuke becomes less of a game ender and more of just a piece of damage, and you can see the huge extent of ColaColin's control. So that is actually going to bring a tie for first place between ColaColin and Matiz. That was Matiz's first defeat, and ColaColin already had one, so he maintains his.